do ring us. The US president was asked last night about his upcoming visit to the UK, and this is what he had to say.
Well, I was invited by the king and by the country, great country, they're going to do a second, as you know, a second fest. And that's what it is, it's a fest, and it's beautiful. And it's the first time it's ever happened to one person. And the reason is that we have two separate terms. And it's an honor to be, I'm a friend of Charles. I have great respect for King Charles and the family, William. We have just a great respect for the family. And it's a very great honor that, and I think they're setting a date for September.
There's so much there. Because that's the first time I've seen him use the royal we. He said, we have had two terms, which is why he's been invited. Now, you remember Mrs. Thatcher said, we have become a grandmother, and she lost her job about a year later. And he has already tweeted pictures of himself wearing a crown as well.
I mean, look,
he's king now.
I think we all need to hope and pray that this man is not president for much longer. I mean, just everything about what he does, from the tariffs to, coronated chicken, coronated chicken that we might have in this country. I know, coronated chicken.
Coronation chicken.
Just siding with Putin. Like, I just think he's a disaster. I think he's a disaster for this country. He's a disaster for global politics. He could be sending countries into recession. The selfishness, the isolationism. He's taken America backwards.
It's happening. Let's just actually look at the sequencing here, because it's a little bit complicated. It actually involves two visits. So we start here with a phone call that's already happened between the Prime Minister and the President, where they discuss the visit. That's been reported. We know that's happened already. And that builds up to then this arrival by Trump on Air Force One in Britain, probably in the autumn. Let's have an autumn tree in there if we can. So, yeah, lovely. So he comes off the ramp. Now, that actually is almost a pre-visit. We'll call it visit number one. He's asked it to be Windsor. I think they offered Balmoral and Sandringham. He said he liked Windsor. Why? The answer is that he loved his time with the Queen. Now, we remember this for the moment the Queen brilliantly played him offside. Do you remember that? They were inspecting the guard, and everyone said, you can't walk in front of the Queen. You're not allowed to. Have a look in replay here. So he stops, and you can see him thinking, where did she go? I don't know where she went. OK? Brilliant move by Her Majesty. Then we have, forget all that, because we're back in the present day. We're now at the second term, and Starmer presents him with the letter.
Regards, of course, but he also asked me to bear this letter and bring it to you.
To bear this letter. So the letter from the King, Trump handles it and then says to Starmer, am I supposed to read it? He gives it back to Starmer to read, and this will mean that King Charles, at some point in his stately rooms, I don't know if Trump will be on bended knee, that's an AI image, but we will have then the state visit proper. So despite what Suzy just said about him being a complete disaster, he is coming for an honour which has been granted to no other American president in the history of their country.
Yeah, but that is just because he is a bully. And that is just because in some ways we have no choice as a country, because, we need to get the best deal. And that's the point. We have to get the best deal possible for the British people when it comes to protecting our economy and, a good, trade agreement. So therefore we have no choice on this. But the fact that it's happening, for me, history will not write well of Donald Trump.
Well, what do you think, Christian? Because we're using all our levers here, aren't we?
Yeah, we are. And I think the reason it's happening isn't necessarily because he's a bully, but because he's a narcissist. And there is a difference. I think the reason that we're offering it twice is because we've never had someone in the White House who is more malleable and receptive and willing to change his mind the more you butter them up. And that's what we're doing here. We're hoping to mitigate the tariffs by a free trade deal. And actually, as many people might think it distasteful, the United States, regardless of the tariffs, remains our single most important economic partner, trading partner and security partner. And if that means having someone over for dinner that we may not particularly like that much, then so be it. We can't have what I describe as love actually diplomacy. We can't have Keir Starmer going, you know what, actually I find you disgusting, go away. We've got to engage. We've got to wrap our arms around this guy. And actually, I think we should feel very special about this situation because I don't think there's another country on earth that is even close to securing a free trade deal. And also bear in mind, Donald Trump put us on the lowest tariffs to begin with.
No,
you're right. I think we've got to.
If I just watch this clip here, this is the body language. When Starmer hands the letter over, he says, I bear this letter. Let's just play a bit of this.
I need to bear this letter and bring it to you. So can I present the letter from the King to you?
Thank you very much. Am I supposed to read it right now?
Yeah, please.
So as you watch this, you'll see, watch Starmer's left hand. There! Isn't it amazing? And he does it again a moment later. And Susie, that sums it up. It's the left hand on the shoulder. We're not, as Christian says, we're not doing the Love Actually thing. We're going into flatter and pander and whatever we can do, slaver if we need to.
Absolutely. And look, full credit.
And why not?
Full credit to Keir Starmer, because the fact is we have got to build that relationship because this is about the greater good of the British people and our economy and getting that good trade agreement. That is what is necessary. And Keir Starmer has done, as far as I'm concerned, excellently at this. But the fact is, he's playing a part that he has to play. And I bet you any money in years to come when he writes that book, he'll tell a different story.
Well, by the way, we can see the Trump blimp from 2018 or 19, I think, in his first term, which the Mayor of London, Sadiq Khan, allowed to be flown over London when he visited, resulting, the plane landed, Trump didn't come off it, everyone wondered what he was doing, and then we knew he was tweeting because the tweet flashed up from his phone, and it just said, Sadiq Khan is a stone-cold loser. That's from the plane!
I'm surprised he hasn't had time to resume that relationship with Sadiq. I was sort of hoping for it.
But listen, so you kind of both agree in a strange way we've got to do this, right? You've got to, the poor old king doesn't get a say in this.
Yeah, I mean, look, we do have to do this. And do you know what? The big thing that pushed me over the edge, which for most British people actually pushed them over the edge, was what they did to Zelensky in that Oval Office.
But I thought you were against the king welcoming him then.
No, the king welcoming who?
Trump. I thought you were against the king.
No, I am against the king welcoming him. I don't think he deserves that second visit. But what I'm saying is, needs must for the greater good of the country. I understand why we have to do it, but I don't want us to do it. I don't think this guy deserves anything for the way he's behaved.
It wasn't just that they were rude to Zelensky, they actually threw him out of the White
House.
Appalling. William is in Clackmannanshire. Do you think we've got to go ahead with this, William?
Good morning. Yeah, we need to get the red carpet out here for Donald Trump. I feel very strongly that this visit must go ahead, and I think there's lots for the politicians to learn from Donald Trump and Robert Kennedy, and perhaps there should be some sort of summit where Donald Trump could share some of the successes and Robert Kennedy, and the politicians in this country could take notes. Because I think if we look at the statistics beyond a lot of the claims from your panelists, Keir Starmer, his approval rating is 14%, and the source for that is YouGov.
I'm assuming, William,
is at 54.
I was going to say, I'm assuming the big thing for you is immigration, because that's what Trump is going on and on and on about, and having success on the southern border with as well.
It's not just immigration for me. What I see is there's all sorts of power grabs going on right now. There's a drive for centralization, and the globalists want to destroy sovereignty. So, of course, immigration is something that's really important. But so for me is my personal health. My body, my choice. Remember that one? We need a reckoning about what's going on with the vaccines, and what Robert Kennedy is doing with autism is courageous. And I'd want to see the politicians listening to Robert Kennedy and doing the same to get clear answers why so many people are autistic, and what is the cause, and stand up to.
Well, I mean, I saw his press conference yesterday. He said autism is being caused by the environment. We know it is, he said, and we're going to find out the cause by September. And I thought that is astonishing.
I mean, I'm going to be honest with you, I think we've got very little to learn from Donald Trump, to be honest. I mean, I went to America back in October, some of the shocking levels of homelessness, inequality, private healthcare. Yeah,
listen, the average person in Britain, outside London, is poorer than the average person in Mississippi, which is America's poorest state.
Yeah, and we've had 14 years of the Tories, and absolutely a Labour government, and I don't care what anyone else said, we are going to turn that round. But, I'm not taking any lessons from Donald Trump.
OK. All right. Well, to turn it around, you need a bit of growth, right? Thanks, William. After the break, we're taking more of your calls. Does Donald Trump deserve a second state visit? 020-7862-2222. We'll see you shortly. But now, Donald Trump's second state visit. So he says we have had 2 terms now, and he's a great friend of King Charles, and his visit will be a fest. You'll be having to celebrate, Susie. I'm
I won't
sorry.
be celebrating, my friend. I'll be out protesting.
You're going to be having to do a bit of cheerleading.
Vuvuzela.
Yeah. Linda in Midlothian, do you think we should be having Mr. Trump?
No,
Why not?
because it's the taxpayers that are going to be paying for him to come over, and the Prime Minister can't pay pensioners their winter fuel, can't give TV licences, and is punishing all the wrong people. So why should we pay for a man like Donald Trump to come over to the UK?
Well, it's a good point. It will cost money. I don't know how many millions.
Well, I
think?
don't know how many millions, but I suppose the key point is that you and I will be paying a heck of a lot more than the state visit costs if we don't get these tariffs off.
No, Linda, we've got to get the tariffs off. This is a shakedown,
I know
basically.
I know that, but we've got people in the UK are homeless. He's bringing all the refugees over here. We're paying for them to stay in hotels, and I know people up in Peebles got the refugees up there. They'll give them their houses. They paid their rent for a year. They paid their tax for a year, and they built a different school because their kids didn't want to go to the school we go to.
Yeah, this comes up all the time. It comes up all the time, and I don't know what the solution is. The world's population is moving, basically, and we haven't yet. We thought we had a strong border, and we don't.
Yeah.
I thought the sea gave you a border, but it doesn't.
Look, the top 2 issues in the country, the economy and immigration, and look, obviously some people could say, we could point to Trump, he's doing a good job, whatever. But ultimately, the fact is we do need to get to grips with it. We do need to bring those numbers down. We do need to bring that cost down. But as you say, it's almost like people are scratching their heads and they're trying to find the solutions to
he is being completely brutal. He sent this guy, Garcia, over to El Salvador, who was married to an American, and they said he's a gang member, and he wasn't, apparently. So...
Yeah, I think that those kind of...
What do you think?
I think that there's a clear reason why Trump was re-elected, and it was largely to do with immigration, and he is taking a very hardline stance. And I think for decades, people in Europe have been begging politicians to stop mass migration, and politicians, election after election, have promised to do it, and they haven't done it. And then they turn around and wonder why people are going for hard right, extreme options. It's because they've been let down. And again, the solution isn't difficult. It's to enforce the border and deport people who shouldn't be here and are trying to come here. Politicians in the main don't want to do that, and then they scratch their heads and wonder why Nigel Farage and the rest are on the rise.
And if you think, well, what's this? How's this relevant to Trump? The answer is that yesterday, when he was talking about this visit, he then went on to a kind of riff about Europe is not in a good place and we don't like what they're doing on immigration, and they've been ruined by immigration. That's what he said. Simon in Greater Manchester, hi.
Hello there.
Hi. Do you think he should be coming for a second state visit?
Absolutely, because the first state visit he did was the late Her Majesty the Queen, and now it's his first state visit with His Majesty the King.
Yeah, true. There's 2 of them. Yeah, that's right. And he's also he's not a second-term president. He's almost a different... I mean, we've never seen this, where you lose an election, you come back and you fight and win.
Yeah.
So on that basis, he's broken the mould, hasn't he?
Indeed, but if you look at it on a different stance, how many visits did Her Majesty the Queen make to the States? She made loads with different presidents, so let's look at it from the other side of the view.
Yeah, now I think the only president she didn't meet was LBJ, actually. So she met Kennedy and all the ones since then. Yeah.
Yeah, I mean, look, we can all see the reasons why this has to go ahead, and obviously, again, it's to do with our economy, it's to do with that, trade, etc. But the fact is, this is deeply unpopular with British people. I said it when I was on the show before, never have I seen so many Brits saying, I'm proud to be British after the way they treated Zelensky. He's kind of showed us what we're not. However, there is obviously that side of British people that like him because of how tough he is on immigration. Yeah. But, in many ways, you don't want this to go ahead, but needs must. OK, Simon, thank you. Kelly in Cardiff, hello.
Hi.
Do you think you'd want to see him in the King's Palace in Windsor or wherever?
I wouldn't like to see him anywhere in this country. The guy is crazy. The guy is a joke, and everything he's done to Ukraine is absolutely disgusting. I'm not going to swear, but I could say a few choice words without swearing. To be honest with you, I am really disappointed in the king. Not that I have much respect for him either, but
But Trump has been elected, so it's a quick way of meeting the American people, isn't it? That Trump is the American people now because they elected him.
I think we should just cut America off altogether with him in power. He is absolutely dangerous. He is dangerous for his own country. He's dangerous for ours, and he's pro-Russia. We don't need that in our country. There will be protests in Wales, in England.
Sure.
If he even steps foot.
Yeah, it's a good point, Christian. This is the weird thing about this. He is basically pro-Russia. He's changed sides during a war. And as a result, the West, as we knew it, has been destroyed.
I do not like Donald Trump's attitude and policies on Ukraine and Russia. I do think he is far, far too sympathetic and relaxed about Putin. But I'd also would reframe it slightly. I understand the American first ideology. And I think you've got to sometimes put yourself in the shoes of your average Joe in the middle of America who, fair enough. Obviously, he doesn't care as much about the war in Eastern Europe as we do when it's on our doorstep. And America has spent hundreds of billions of pounds. Yeah. Now, obviously, I think that's a very short-termist attitude. And if we'd taken the same approach with the Nazis, then things would have gone very differently. America did for a very long time. And many people, many millions have died unnecessarily.
Exactly.
I understand the driving ideology behind Trump's position. I do seriously disagree with it, though.
OK, all right. Tina in Buckinghamshire, hi.
Hello.
Do you want to see him in Britain?
Absolutely not. But yes, I understand why he's been invited. And I suppose, what can I say? I do think that it's about time we realise that whilst he's in power, he's no ally, and America is no ally to us. Until the Democrats get a backbone, everybody is out on the streets. I lived in America. I have lots of American friends. People are out every day protesting. Yeah. Why can't they say, you're not keeping the Constitution? The Constitution is, I would have thought that was an impeachable offence right on its own. He's ignoring judges. He's sending out to virtually a concentration camp. The last thing he said was he's going to send mentally handicapped people out there because he doesn't want them in his country.
I didn't hear that. Look, yes, I mean, in the end, what he's done is he's realised that with executive orders you can do almost anything, and he's hit the ground running so fast. He'd done 60 before Congress had even got back. So, including, by the way, banning paper straws.
It's worth mentioning as well, if you look at his popularity in America, it's something like 45% approve, 46% don't approve. So, actually, that's pretty good. Yeah. And he's doing, and I think a lot of Americans, this is the key point, a lot of Americans, especially his supporters, they factor in the chaos. They go, of course, things will be chaos. So that's why he's not really taking a hit on the economy.
Until it wipes
they
out
like what he's doing on immigration.
Until it wipes out their pensions. Sorry.
I mean, no, I was just going to say, look, obviously, like this kind of thing, look, people do want politicians in this country that know what they're about. They've got conviction. They do what they say they're going to do. And this direct action stuff and getting on with the job, all of that stuff is good. But, we were just mentioning about, World War II and the fact that the Americans were isolationist about that and they didn't come in so late and etc. And it's like the guy doesn't know his history. So it's okay. There are some things there which obviously people like in a leader, and you've got to recognise that. And even that make Britain great again. There's things that people would like about that. But it's this wider stuff, cozying up to Russia, the tariffs,
OK, thank you for your calls. Later we'll be asking...